it's like Brene Brown says, I love this quote from her. We're not here to be right. We're here to get it right. So that's, if we can move with that compass, right? If we can move with that alignment and that clarity for ourselves,
Yeah.
I think we'll be okay.
A growing health, wellness, and leadership podcast designed for you to become your most empowered self.
Great day, amazing humans. Welcome to the Empowered in My Skin podcast, where our mission is to help 1 billion people in this world think in more empowering ways. Empowered humans empower humans. So you are the right spot to become a lead domino for empowerment today. So let the show begin. Great day, amazing humans. Welcome to the first episode of season 6. Yes. And we're right smack dab in International Women's Month. So guess what? The human I'm about to interview identifies as she and hers. That's right. We're repping International Women's Month this month and interviewing some amazing, amazing women who lead from vibrant spaces. So our next guest is more than a speaker. She's a conversation starter, a story weaver, and a catalyst for change. Now you know why she's on the podcast. Combining humor, approachability, and a deep understanding of the human experience, she encourages audience to challenge their perceptions, embrace diversity, and foster a culture of inclusion. With her unique ability to foster connections, she's driven by her mission to transform workplaces into more exclusive, vibrant, and equitable environments. So I trust you're as excited as I am to learn more about our guest. So please join me in a gigantic podcast welcome for Barbara Yebuga. You know who you just remind me in a minute?
Tell me. Who?
Bozoma. But I just that's a compliment, right?
Can I get that in writing? And if you want to post that on any of my social media platforms, if you want to give me a LinkedIn recommendation, we all heard it here first, right?
Yeah, I just saw your posture and I was like, ooh, that reminded me of Boz. Yeah, man. So awesome.
Boz is that's my shiro. You want to talk happy International Women's Day to all the women out there. And I'll even get emotional. She's a big part of when I make moves and decisions, I'm like, what would Boz do? How would she play this? She is just someone that I only imagined in my mind. And to see someone like that in living, breathing form and being unapologetically herself.
I know she's bad,
being strong, being sexy, being smart. Oh my goodness. Oh, we could have a whole episode on her, so don't get me started.
It's so funny. The biggest thing about Boz did for me in 2022, there was an interview that she did. I think she had just left Netflix. And she said, when you can look left and right and ask yourself, am I still growing? And the answer is no. Then you know that it's time for you to leave. And so I was in a space in my life where that was the catalyst for me leaving my organization I'd been at for 11 years. Wow. And daring to try something different that really put me out in the front and exposed me into a really scary new place, right? So
it's having that, the courage and the audacity to dream such a dream. That's what I think of her. She's just the ultimate boss, and working for these giants, Netflix, the Pepsis, she just is Uber. The list goes on. These are brands. Okay, these are giants.
And she put them on the map. Let's just be real. She made them cool.
If you are listening to this right now and you do not know the woman we were talking about, please find her. She is such an inspiration, just as a human, as a business person. Her business acumen is unlike anything I've seen. And she is really paving the way when you think of, and many people don't know her. I talk a lot about trailblazers and people who are behind the scenes who you may not know are doing just amazing things. She's behind these big Super Bowl performances. You see Beyonce on stage. She's orchestrating this.
She put Beyonce on the map.
She put Beyonce on the map.
Even
how many people can say that?
She even what's called look at us talking about Apple Music.
Apple Music,
right? Yeah, man.
Pepsi.
Yeah, she has a story with the Spike. Like her story
Yep.
involves. Oh my
With
God.
Spike, exactly, with Spike Lee, and oh my goodness. So yeah,
Yeah.
we do not work for Bose for the
No, no.
record.
By
She's
the
not paying us
way,
to do
we
this.
might have to tag her. We might have
Exactly.
to tag her on this.
Yeah. I will always sing her praises any chance I get. Big ups
Yeah,
to
I think
Bose.
I think
Big
I'm gonna
ups.
cut out this part of this interview and put it on Instagram and tag her, and then you'll.
Please, let's
Yeah,
do. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yes, we need to let her know the
So
love is real.
I want to talk about the word that you just used in a minute, audacity. But my the first question, by the way, let's start this interview now.
Right. As we work back to what we were talking about, what we're here for.
So I wanted to know, what is your most empowered thought that you've had of the day so far?
Ooh. The most empowered thought that I've had today. You know, it's no secret. There's so much going on in the world. There's so much people are dealing with so much in their personal lives, in their head. Mental health is real as far as the struggles
Yeah,
people are having. And I'm not gonna lie, even today, I was excited to talk to you today and be on the podcast. But I also had a feeling of to get out of bed today and to do the work as far as what I do, bringing, people and cultures, my heartbeat and what I do, and making sure that, I leave this place as a good ancestor. Like as an ancestor, I want to know I did my part to
yeah,
create a more inclusive world, a more just world, a world where we can truly be our best selves.
yeah.
So for the days that I'm kind of like today was a bit of it was one of those days I was dragging myself out of bed. I'm going to be honest. And I thought to myself, Barb, you have a job to do. And my dad would always say, be soft on people, tough on problems. And I'd always carry that with me when I was up against a challenge or when I just felt like, today it feels like an uphill battle. I always keep that with me where it's like, that's how you need to move as a leader, whether
Mm,
you're a mother leading your family, you're in a partnership in work. Remember when things get tough or when we inevitably get annoyed with people,
mm,
frustrated, remember to be persistent on being hard on those problems and challenges and finding those solutions and being soft on people because we need, if there's anything we need more of, it's empathy and
yeah,
compassion and
yeah,
understanding. So
yeah.
yeah, that one I give up to my dad, John Yebuga, rest in peace.
Oh my gosh, we have so much ties because my dad's a rest in peace as well, and I'm daddy's girl. But I actually want to double click on. So first of all, let me just backtrack for people because I need to be fully transparent
Mhm.
because it's relevant. So Barb and I are actually recording this in 2023.
It's a true story.
That's a
Okay.
true story.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
And it's November 4th. And I told her that because we do all of these scheduling for the podcast, what I realized is that we overbooked, and we overbooked by 2. And so her episode is actually the first. It is going to kick off, but I want everyone to understand this when you do listen to it, that what she just said is so relevant for the day that you're listening to this. Like, sometimes I think we take for granted that the things that we say today don't have an impact in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just want to really express that you have said something today that on March 6, 2024, when somebody listens to this,
Yeah.
it's going to be what they need for that day.
Mm.
Soft on people, tough on problems. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me more about your dad and your relationship.
Oh my goodness. My dad, well, like you, so we both have that in common. We've gained some guardian angels and some guidance on the other side. It's how I like to see it. I was a daddy's girl. I still am. He's someone who always, education was huge for
Mm,
my dad. It was huge, huge, huge. And he worked in the school system, Toronto School Board. He was a social worker. My mother also was an educator, so that was very important. He always said, I will make sure you have a roof over your head and food on the table, clothes on your back. That's my contribution to the family. Your contribution is to study. So I moved through life with that just kind of being a top priority. And he was someone who was like my go-to person for everything. So I was involved in figure skating, dance, gymnastics, brownies, Girl Scouts, all of that. He was the one driving me to all of these things. He was the one, that typical dad, like driving me and my friends to the movies and all of that. So I very early in my life, I mean, having a strong male figure, it was all I knew. My dad really was my hero. And I mean hero in the sense of, he loved me, of course, he provided for me, but he was someone who really helped me think about, okay, what's the impact you want to have,
Yeah.
you know, and always feeling empowered. Like, no, you don't not gonna feel helpless.
Yeah.
You can do something, right? You always can do something. He came here, and my family came here through Amnesty International. He was actually a prisoner of conscience.
Oh, wow.
In Sudan. So he was, speaking up about the injustices he was seeing in Uganda, and that got him in trouble. And he was put behind bars, and he suffered. He doesn't talk about it too much. My mom and my close family friends who were witnessed that and were with him during that time share the stories. But him coming here through Amnesty International, it was a big deal. It was a big BBC. They had a whole campaign. And up till now, I support Amnesty International because I owe them my life, right? Our family. And so just having that idea of social justice and equality and equity and inclusion, that really was my foundation through my father and my mother. So
Wow, that's
I owe
big.
him that. Yeah, I
That's
definitely
big.
owe my dad for that.
It's funny. I spoke Bose's name when I looked at you, and I thank Nelson Mandela when you just shared that story.
Ah, my gosh.
Look at like what you emulate. I think that's huge, right?
Yeah, and that's first of all huge. And I'm gonna ask, can I get that in writing? And again, feel free, post it on my LinkedIn, Barbara
Testimonial,
Yebuga testimonial.
testimonial. Yes, I will.
That's huge because it's Nelson Mandela. I don't need to say anymore. I don't wake up thinking I'm gonna
Yeah.
fight the powers that be. That's not really my mentality. Shout out to folks that do move through the world like that. We all have our own ways of moving through this world. For me, it was just it's just like when you sneeze, you blink, your eyes just
It's
by
innate.
default
It's
close.
in your
It's
DNA.
just innate. I don't know how to not react when I see something that's just unfair. And that was something from when I was playing in, the sandbox on the playground, and I saw, Bobby had the ball longer than Susie, and I was all up in there like, that's not fair.
Yeah.
We need to play fairly. This is not. I was from then managing, you know, managing relationships and making sure everyone got to play and participate fairly. But I I know what it's like to not feel included. I know what it's like to be dismissed and underrated. I know what it's like just to not feel like you belong.
Mhm.
And a lot changed for me when I became an auntie. Like when I became Auntie Barb, and shout out to my nephews, Akil, Asa. Those are just two of many. I have a huge community of
Nice.
nieces and nephews. But that changed a lot for me, where I thought to myself, oh my goodness, they're going to move through this world, and they need to, I want to make sure they understand their worth. I want to make sure that they have a healthy self-esteem. I love the fact that they still don't understand why Barack Obama was such a big deal.
Mm.
I love that. And also, I love that I get the opportunity to share where we've come from, right? And I'm not talking about slavery days, which, I'm African Canadian, as are you. So slavery, as far as my lineage, that's not part of
Mm.
my history. So, but we know that here in like North America, that narrative is often constantly put on us as far as how what we were up against. And I celebrate that, and I love that we have overcome so much, and we just have such a rich history,
Yeah.
that I want to make sure that the next generation is aware of.
Yeah. And I love that. So I'm telling you the parallels. I don't know how we haven't met before. You know what? Doesn't matter. We know each other now. But I remember it prompted a story that in my youth where I grew up in, my parents came here on their own to get, my dad more so to get education in 1964. And then they ended up staying because of the Biafra War in Nigeria. And so, and very much like you, education was the foundation of upbringing, right? But I remember in school, and so my dad parents were well-to-do. They can move anywhere, and they plopped into a white neighborhood. But this is all in hindsight. Like they didn't even know it because they didn't see themselves as Black. They were
Yes.
Nigerian. They're educated. They're doing well. Well, where do educated people live? And they kind of went. And so it just happened to be and they were pioneers because we were the first Blacks in the community. The four of us, I call four speckles of Black, and a diverse community grew around us. Right, like a Black family moved next door. The Injukan, they have like 9 kids, and then across the street there was like South Asian, and then there was Asian, and so we saw over the 25 years of us living in Montreal and Beaconsfield, a diverse community, and I feel like my parents were like a catalyst for that. But anyway, all of that to say, I remember in school, because of what they learned, there was kids that would tease me and say, "My grandfather owned your grandmother." And I would go home crying. It was a situation. That was what was said. I went home crying. And my mom said, "Oh, how now, Nkechi? Haven't you been to the village?
Exactly.
Did you see a white man with mama?" Like she would call my grandmother's names. Like, "Did you see a white man talking to grandma?" I was like, "No." So how? Go back to school and tell them.
Oh my goodness.
That's not true for you, right? And so, like, doesn't that teach us something about? I love what you said, like our ancestry, like our history, that we don't have to fall victim. And that's what these kids need to learn today. So, what do you think based on that? And this is like, apologies to my team, because this is none of the questions that they need.
Sorry to the producers. I'm so sorry. We're not following the script.
Biggest thing that you're teaching your nieces and nephews, like about how to own their identity.
I love that question. For me, it's exposure. So, shameless plug, I wrote a book called Trailblazers in Canada. Shout out to my publishers, Pearson Canada. And it is a collection of stories of trailblazers, folks that did things that were never done before. And I'm talking about big things. We talked about Uber earlier. The first Uber, quote unquote, here in Canada was led and created by a Black couple, the Blackburns. And a lot of us don't know that, right? I talk about politicians that really like paved the way. Mifflin Gibbs, he's another one. There's just so many stories that are buried. And working on that book was it filled my cup up. I worked on it like it was my baby. I worked on this so much, and I was so inspired. And I was also kind of pissed off because I was like, how am I a grown adult who born, raised in Canada, and I did not know any of this? I was someone who was always reading. I loved the library. I was quite the astute student. How was this buried? And why is it that every year I was being taught the same narrative about folks that look like myself? So for me to answer your question, it's exposure. So I wrote that book, Trailblazers in Canada, and I'm actually working on another project. You would appreciate this, being in tech. Trailblazers in STEM, and I'm focusing on Black. Yeah, you and I are gonna have to maybe have a part 2 and talk about that. Yes, I want more representation in STEM. And the joke is there is actually a lot of representation, but again, if we're not seeing it, if we're not exposed, how's the next generation going to know that it's a possibility? We were talking about bows earlier. To see bows, I'm inspired to know, okay, it's possible. And you're able to expand your imagination, right, of what's possible. So for me, how I encourage younger people to be authentic and to kind of find their own way and be true to themselves is I expose them to all the possibilities and let them know that there's no one way to be quote unquote a boy or quote unquote a girl or quote unquote Black or African, Nigerian, Ugandan. No, we are so diverse. There's so much diversity in diversity. I always say that. And there's only one you. And there's so many possibilities of what you can do with your life and your skill set. And so I'm all about exposure. Just expose, tell our stories, being African, storytelling is huge. And I think that's not unique to Africans. I think in a lot of cultures, we
Yeah.
pass on knowledge, in our history through storytelling. So that's
Yeah.
a big part of like the work I do. And I go into schools. I work with about 12 different school boards and have gone to dozens of schools and
Mhm.
work with young children to make sure that not just for the children that look like me, right? This is our history. These
Yeah.
trailblazers, they didn't just pave the way for, Black folks. They definitely did, but they paved the way for a lot
Right.
of folks, right? For all of us. They were all
Right.
part of helping us have a more equitable, world and society. So
Yeah.
exposure, exposure, exposure.
That's huge. Exposure is everything. And I even think like where we are on today. And so by the way, we are going to have that tech conversation because I think it's part of I started a movement called WIT Love, so Women in Tech Love.
Okay.
And so I'm using that movement to connect young girls to professional women in tech. And so they interview them through like the podcast and host them. And it encourages the girls to learn how to be insatiably curious, exposure, right? To give them
Hmm.
exposure to what's possible,
Yep. Yep.
exposure is everything. Let me ask you something. So do you think, so when you reflect on your life as a catalyst for, I want to dig into you being a catalyst for change. Yeah. So what were you exposed to that you believe was your biggest catalyst for who you are on today?
Hmm. You're coming through with these good questions. Jeez. So, my story, as far as my upbringing, I was in a very, very diverse community. Like when my parents came and settled in Canada, I wasn't born yet, and I think a couple years after they settled, they had me. And so we lived like, downtown Toronto, actually across the street from what we know as Regent Park. For those of you who are from Toronto, you may be familiar. So it was a city. It was multicultural. We would parties, dinners. I had a Filipino aunt. I had a, Italian uncle. I had, it was so diverse. Pakistani uncle. We just were all this melting pot, just a masala of folks. And it was great. So that's all I knew growing up. And then we moved to the suburbs, to Mississauga. And at that time, it was dirt roads. We were the only non-white folk, period, so that was quite the experience. And I think for me, because I was exposed to so many different cultures and people with different abilities, and they all did amazing things. They were teachers, lawyers, doctors, you name it. My parents, in addition to that, also raised me to really believe in myself and acknowledge that the opinions that others have on me is none of my business. The only thing that matters is how I feel about myself and being sure that I'm honoring, my values. Be a good person, golden rule. So when I got older and I started to see that things like now I'm talking about older, now I'm working in corporate world and I'm seeing how the systems that be operate, and I'm seeing the folks what they look like, who is making the decisions and who isn't. That changed a lot for me. And it changed a lot for me because I remember having a manager and she had some very, very just twisted views on Black folks specifically. And she believed that Black folks, her words were, Black folks were created to drown. Their bodies were made that they can't swim. They're unable. I'm a swimming instructor, and I've noticed that they always drown, and that's just what it is. And I was so confused because I come from a family of folks that swim. My grandmother swam with my pregnant mom on her back.
Wow.
By the Nile. Like we're active swimmers. So, but she was so certain, like, no, this is the truth. And I'm scratching my head because I'm like, you have a bigger paycheck than me. You manage me, and you truly believe this is the truth that Black people, her words, are created to drown. And then there were so many other just very confusing, just straight up racist and discriminatory words that would come out of her mouth. And what concerned me was that, yes, as my parents raised me to believe, the opinions of others, none of my business. But then I'm like, but now her opinion matters because that's my bonus. That's my promotion, right? Her opinion of me. I have to care about what she thinks. And when I had a conversation, I'm all about let's lean into having those uncomfortable conversations or those courageous conversations. And when I told her, she needs to be mindful of what she's saying and kind of gave her a little schooling, her feedback to me was, well, Barbara, that was what I was taught. Um, she was an immigrant here from Poland, and she said, where I came from in schools, that's what I was taught. Shout out to all my Polish folks that are listening. Lots of love for you. I have a lot of Polish friends, so this is not an attack on you. Let me put that out there from now. But she and I started to engage, and what I learned is education, back to education.
Mm,
That's what mattered. And I'm like, wow, you made it through your whole life, and now you've made it. You're in the corporate world, you're managing teams, and you've lived your whole life with this mentality that there is a defect, or Black folks are less than in some capacity, and it's because of what she was taught in school. And that's what inspired me to work with folks like Pearson to get my book,
yeah.
to write books and have it exposed in the school system, so that we're really being mindful of how we're teaching and educating our students. Because guess what? They turn out to be adults, grown adults that run businesses and organizations.
So
Yes.
education
Yeah.
is exposure.
Education is exposure, and turning point for me was realizing as an adult people can still have these very narrow viewpoints, and so that was a turning point for me as an adult, seeing that and realizing, okay, I need to shift gears here, and education is really going to be what I'm going to push for. So I started to do working a lot with human resources, people and culture, to discuss about like unconscious bias, those kind of things, recruitment processes, etc., which
So
I'm
we're
sure
going
we'll
to
get
double
into.
click on that now.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
first of all, Catalyst for Change. Amen. You are. Love it. I'm loving your story. So diversity and inclusion can be seen as buzzwords,
Yes.
right? Especially in this day and age, especially in the corporate world. Amen
Yes.
to that. Yeah.
Oh.
So how do you distinguish between genuine commitment to these values and performative actions? And the reason why I think that this is so important is
Mhm.
because we are we are so far from, let's just say, so far from George Floyd.
Yeah. Yep.
And there's fatigue in the
Yep.
system, and not just for Black people, but Indigenous and you're right, just
Absolutely.
diversity inclusion as well. And even if I think about some of the circles I'm in, I'm finding that it's, where are my women at?
Yeah.
I'm back to just gender diversity, right, and
Yeah.
including. So how do you distinguish between genuine commitment versus people that are just rearranging the furniture so it looks like they do diversity inclusion really well?
I love this question. So f- I need to speak to where we are, just how we engage in our like society socially, which is social media. And I know it's so cliche to talk about social media, but that's how we engage a lot. That's where, we had the hashtags and the black squares. And I feel like we're at a place where if you don't show the receipts, if you're not posting that hashtag, if you're not putting out a statement, you're not doing the work. And look, there's definitely a place to speak up. Like, and I'm talking to those big organizations and corporations where there are times where you need to be explicit as far as where you stand when there are big social moments. But I'm speaking more towards the everyday person, the mother, the father, the auntie, the uncle, whomever you are, just in your day-to-day life.
Mhm.
I always think of, the conversations I've had even with my friends who are mothers, who are reading stories to their children, who are having conversations at the dining room table, who are having, one of my friends having an uncomfortable conversation with her white husband, about the experiences she's had as a marginalized person. And these are moments that, you're not going to capture that and post it on social media. You're not having those intimate moments really shared with the world. And I don't think you need to, So I think what I'm getting at is when you look at the real commitment to this DE and I work, um, it has a lot to do with your private moments. It's actually personal work, and it's a day-to-day thing. So for me, it's how have you set up your life where you are actually making sure that you're continuing to learn and unlearn. So for me, a very practical or tactical approach I had was I noticed on my news feeds, there were a lot of people that I agreed with. There were a lot of people that looked like me, that talked like me, that had similar experiences as me. And yes, I like to see myself and reaffirm myself and see myself reflected, but I could see how also that's very problematic. So I took the approach of, okay, we're fortunate to live in a time with technology. We're exposed to so many things. I'm going to switch the different news outlets, that I'm following and watching, just to have diverse perspectives. and ensure that you're constantly, again, learning, unlearning, relearning. So again, I think that how to really stay the course and differentiate the performers versus those that are really dedicated. I think it's just it's a personal journey. I'm not here to really police people and say, hey, are you doing your DEI work? No. And also I want to say, with all these acronyms and letters, DEI, EDI, there's a J in there. I think for where I'm sitting, we're in the Toronto area. Diversity is a given. We live in a very diverse spot. So for me, it's the inclusion and equity that I really have been, exploring a lot, just because of where the clients I work with and where I am.
Right.
And also, don't just have diversity for diversity's sake. Really take time to, whether it's bringing in consultants, really looking at, okay, when it comes to leaders, what's the gender representation, what's the racial representation, what's the skill set, the backgrounds. I really work with a lot of companies on seeing even just the requirements for some of these roles, right? And seeing how often we discriminate those who have educations outside of Canada and America. There's so much opportunity to do this work, again, from a corporate level and a personal level. But you need to be committed to it, right? Like, you really need to be committed to it and understand what your unique path is to continuing that learning and unlearning.
I will definitely I love the fact that you talk about learning, and then to learn, you have to unlearn, right? And I think it's almost like you have to choose every day to say, I'm going to approach this day unlearned, so that as I hear new things, I can say, okay, I'm going to use this to add to what I've thought previously and course correct, or this, any other. You have to be that willing and that open every single day.
It's like Brene Brown says, I love this quote from her: we're not here to be right, we're here to get it right. And, right? I love it. I love that quote. And so that's, if we can move with that compass, right? If we can move with that alignment and that clarity for ourselves, I think we'll be okay.
It's really huge. Girlfriend, so first of all, this has been so
I know. Has the time gone already?
I know. I have to go into my rapid fire.
Right?
I feel like there might be a part 2 somewhere.
You might have to. Let us know if you want a part 2.
Because there's wow, I feel so good. And like I said to everyone, we are recording this in November of 2023. But I see so much future with you. Yeah,
I hope so. This has been such a pleasure
with you. And I'm actually happy that this is in the future, because it means that we're just going to continue to do some work together.
Yes, we are. You heard it here.
Yeah.
You heard it here.
So I want to take you into some rapid fires, which in the end get us to know a little bit more about you. So when you think of someone who inspires you, who comes first to mind?
Ooh, someone who inspires? My parents. Yeah.
Have you lost both your parents?
No, my mom's here, thankful for that. I just see the journey that they took, the chance they took on themselves, their love story, my mom staying with my dad through it all, and them coming here and seeing them even separate for some time and come back. And my 4 siblings they've given me, no, my parents truly are, and the life they've given me, I'm really grateful for them.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love that. What is a book that has helped you with your self-empowerment?
Oh gosh, that's so hard because there's so many. One? That's very hard. I can't do one. There's one that recently I've been rereading what is his name? Bob Joseph, Things You Didn't Know About the Indian Act. It's a really, really good book. I read it. Yeah, I'm rereading it. I think I even have it by me because I'm always reading it. Yeah. 21 Things You Didn't Know About the Indian Act.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's new.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna have to
Bob Joseph.
check
Yeah.
out Bob Joseph.
Yeah.
Okay, what is a daily activity, Barb, that helps you stay empowered?
Power walking. I love to power walk. It just gets my blood going, got a good playlist going or a good podcast.
That's
Empowered in my
new.
skin, maybe I'm listening
Yeah,
to
yeah.
as I'm power walking. I'm feeling empowered. Yeah.
You are the first in 260, I think it's gonna be like 68 or 69 episodes to say that.
Really?
No, yeah,
Yeah.
not power walking. I've
Yeah.
heard power walking. That's different because that's a
Yes.
whole different type
It's a
of walk.
whole, I'm very passionate about it. Yeah. Power walking. Shout out to my power walkers.
What is an app that helps you stay empowered?
Ooh, I've currently been using the Calm app.
Mhm.
Shout out to my friends at Green Shield. They've Lori Blandford, Harriet, a lot
Mhm.
of folks at Green Shield have introduced me to that app, and it's great. It's like meditation, it's different podcasts just to help with your wellness and well-being.
Do
Yep.
you use it every day?
I use it almost every day. I kind of have like I have a roster of resources depending on how
Okay.
my day is that I can pick at.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
love that. So I have a question for you. Just this is maybe like 4.5 on the what is your daily habit? Like your environment that you create to stay empowered?
My daily habit. So my daily habit would be um hmm, incense. I burn me a little non-chop incense.
Mhm.
I love that. Yeah. Um
So sense help you.
yes, scents really, really, really help me. Yeah,
What else?
absolutely. Meditation. I do meditate quite a bit.
Mhm.
And I have I have a playlist that I go where it's just all
Mhm.
sounds and it helps me sleep. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Favorite song on your playlist? Music playlist.
Ooh, favorite song on my playlist?
Like most like
Me,
one that pumps you up.
right now, Me and You by Thames.
Okay. Oh,
That's been on repeat. Again, this is November 2023, friends.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. No, no,
it
it's
might
fine.
be
So if
different.
I
Yeah.
had to introduce you on stage as
Yeah.
the keynote speaker and a song
Oh,
played, is that the one that comes on for you?
oh no. Okay. Okay. Now that's a different contest. If you're
Yeah.
putting that, it may be like oh, maybe something like Black Parade or Energy.
Ooh, okay.
Of course, so cliche, a Beyonce song, but yes.
Yeah.
I was trying to be unique and find something
You know,
different, but no.
mine for 2023 is all I do is win, win, win,
Win, win.
no matter what.
Yes.
And every time I step up in the building,
Building,
everybody
everybody hands
go.
go up. And I say down, say down. Yeah, that or win, 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 win. That's a big tune of mine. It's
Okay, I
there's
gotta
a bit
check
of
out.
explicit lyrics in it, but it gets me pumped.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll have to find the clean version. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And last question, last rapid thriver for you is what is one misconception that people have of you as they see you take the stage or
Mm.
sort of even when they listen to this podcast and they hear your insights? What is the one misconception that people have of you as they see you empowered in this world?
Mm. Oh, that's a good question. They may not know that actually I was very, very shy growing up, like extremely shy. My parents actually got me a specialist because I was terrified to speak with
Really?
people and in front of people. Oh, it was a problem. Like I even had a speech therapist and it was a whole thing. Oh yeah. Like my parents were genuinely concerned. So like to see me do what I do now and on stages, it's it's quite the trip for people who knew me back then.
And
Yeah.
especially the way you energize the rooms and
Yeah.
the spaces, everything tunes to you. That's
Yeah,
big.
no, it's been the juxtaposition from going from being so shy, and I've got to be on stage with amazing people, Prime Minister, with Jean Chrétien, with Oprah. I got to be with her. Like there's so many big moments in my career, and I keep thinking of that little girl who would never have imagined to do something like that.
It's empowering.
Yeah.
Okay. So where do we find more of you online?
Ooh, you can find me. I'm on most social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, my website, and it's just my name, Barbara Yebuga.
Okay.
Barbara, last name Yebuga. Say
I
hi,
love
I'm friendly. I put on a lot of content, especially on LinkedIn. So meet me. I do a lot of workshops with organizations and folks in people and culture, human resources. So if you're looking for me to come do foundational DEI work with your employees or leadership training or mental health is also a big one. I do the mental health hygiene of organizations.
Mm.
So reach out to me. I genuinely love connecting with people and just learning where people are at in their journey. And let's do this together. We're all ancestors in due time. We all have work to do. We all have a responsibility to leave this world, this place better than better than it was. So I really am here as a human being. Besides all the identities we all have, we're humans first. So um,
And
big love to everyone. Everyone, let's be gentle with each other, please, please,
amen.
please.
Amen.
Yeah.
And so parting question, this podcast is called Empowered in My Skin.
Mhm.
And what does it mean to you to be empowered in my skin?
Empowered my skin to me is embracing, accepting, and loving all of you, and understanding that there's no bad part of you, right? There are areas that we want to improve, we want to, do better in, but we are we are perfect the way we are, right? We are truly wonderful beings, and the fact that we're even here,
Yeah.
what it took for us to be physically here and right now. And
Yeah.
like specifically to all the women, I just have such a big place in my heart for women. Yes, I am a woman. um and I've just seen how women have shown up
Mm,
consistently and how they truly are the foundation of our society. And I just want to send so much love to women because we're amazing, and
mm,
just know that you are perfect and divine in your own right. And continue to shine your light, continue to be your amazing authentic self. The world needs it. The
yeah.
world needs you to come out and be your best authentic self.
Wow. My friend, you are truly a catalyst for change.
Oh, I
And this
appreciate you.
experience actually has just really changed the trajectory of my day. So you do this by, what is it that our greatest in our deepest fear, it always talks about when you're liberated from your own fear, you
Hmm.
you automatically liberate others. And I
Yes.
feel liberated from this conversation. So thank you.
Ah,
I appreciate the world for bringing us together. I appreciate God. I really do. I appreciate God for connecting us. And who would have thought, one event back in May of 2023. Who knows? Who knows what the future holds? But it
stay
definitely
tuned.
holds you in it with me.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, I'm affirming that. Thank you for what you do. I appreciate you so much. I really, really do. I love your podcast. I love the conversations you have. I love the light. You're someone who reminds me, yes, keep showing up authentically. That's what showing up authentically looks like. I
I love
appreciate you.
it. It looks
Yeah.
fly too, man.
It looks so fly.
Fly.
Yo, that part.
So to everyone that's listening, this is where I have to say we're out. Bye-bye. There you have it. I trust that you're feeling more empowered in your skin. And as the late Dr. Maya Angelou says, when you get, you give, when you learn, you teach. So it would mean so much for us at EIMS if you share this episode and tag us or teach an insight that you learned from today's episode on your socials and tag us. And remember to go over onto iTunes and leave us a review or follow us on socials at Empowered in My Skin. But most importantly, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode.